Welcome back to The Samplist, everyone. My name's Greg, and as always, an honour to have you join me. Today we're exploring something delightfully nostalgic, OBSO by Circle Cynths, a contact-based instrument built from gritty, soulful sounds of obsolete media. It brings the character of VCRs, cassette decks, and vintage 80s hardware right into your door. With 120 unique patches from creamy pads and lush basses to shimmering bells and burnished brass, it's a time capsule straight back to the neon-lit 1980s. OBSO is fully compatible with both the full version of Contact and the free Contact player, as long as you're running version 7.10.5 or above. This tactile, nostalgia-infused library is available now for $69.69. As always, we maintain editorial independence at The Samplist. We haven't been paid by Circle Cynths for this video. That said, we are most grateful to David and the Circle Cynths team for providing us with a free copy of OBSO for today's review, but it came with no creative input and no strings attached. Our candid perspective is something we hold in high regard, so you can trust our honest opinion. Stick around as we dive into some standout presets, explore the depth of its controls, and share the all-important composition to see it perform in the spotlight. If you love these virtual instrument deep dives, hit like and subscribe so you never miss the next one. Let's get right on in. So here we go, I've loaded up OBSO into Contact 8. As I said earlier, as long as it's a minimum of 7.10.5, you're good to go, player, or indeed the full Contact. It's a very simple product, a very simple interface with some big moving circles to allow you to control a number of parameters. I'll return to them shortly, but what better way to start than let's just kick off and see what this sounds like out of the box. This one is called Wave Brum. Who doesn't need a whole heap of brass stabs to take you back to the 80s? Now that said, this Wave Brum, it does have that high attack. But if you hold the key down, it will give you the full sample. So if you're patient, you'll get that decrescendo back into a crescendo to peak. Let's have a quick look at some other things to play with. You can choose between two options to select your presets, of which there are 120 to explore, so you can be there for well into a good weekend exploring all this. There is the whole list here in alphabetical order, or as I tend to prefer, using the inbuilt function. So let's pick a couple at random. I'm going to go for Chassio. Doesn't that take you back to the early 80s? That's a gorgeous pad sound. That's really nice. And what I like about OBSO, the thing that will stand out to you, I'm sure, as it has for me, is they've allowed the samples to contain all the lovely warmth of the clicks and the wow and the flutter and the static. And you can hear it. It's one of the core features, that beautiful old analog sound. We have got an interesting one, Shitstorm. Yeah, that does sound like a shitstorm, but an interesting one nonetheless. And Optigan. Have we got time for another quick one with Captain Sitar? Yeah, love that. That's nice. Lots of warmth, deep analog sounds there. Moving into the upper registers. Really nice. So let's go back to the home page and have a quick look around at the interface. Again, the interface, it's a lovely warmth, analog-y feel. The colors are a little bit muted. They're a little bit blurred on the images around the edges. That lovely, delightful retro feel, which is great. Now, in terms of the interface, it's a very simple instrument to play with. A series of circles with a slider to allow you to adjust the value of each of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 controls. They'll be most familiar to you if you're familiar with synthesizers in general. So, of course, the attack is controlled by this one here. So again, as you move up, you can see the graphics change, which is lovely. So a slow attack versus a quick, heavy attack. I'm going to choose another one by random just to help. So RLS, as the name suggests, is all about the release. So a very quick release, or versus a longer. Release the key now, and she fades away. The one in the center is known as EFX, effects, if you like. It sounds like to me it's more like a stereo width adjuster. So here to one extreme is what I would say more central or mono versus a more of a stereo wide version, which I quite really enjoy that one too. The filter is the one that by default is connected to your mod wheel, and the filter is a classic low pass filter. And the final one is mod. Now, mod is very subtle. It's designed to capture the slight wow and flutter of a tape from one of the sources. Now, from what I understand is that this is a very delicate feature and is dependent on the actual, the preset you've chosen. Now, I have it an understanding. I'm going to play a preset here called Vibiola. And let's just return here. And that sounds like this. Let me hold down that note, and if you're listening very carefully, it's currently at one end. Hear the wow and flutter, it's a lot more predominant at that end. But still very quite subtle too, and you'll find that it's quite subtle to almost non-existent for a lot of the patches. Now that said, it allows you to control the taste if you like. My understanding is that Christian and the team at Circle Cynths, who make OBSO, are potentially working on a new version of this mod control to make it a little bit more predominant or stronger, if you like, for those who want more a stronger feel over that particular control. So there you have it in a nutshell. We have the attack, the release, the effects, which is that stereo widener, the filter, and the modular controller. So all in all, a lovely set of controls, simple controls to allow you to tailor the sound to your choice. In terms of selecting the presets, as I said earlier, there are two options here. You can choose from the conventional contact menu, which gives you the list in alphabetical order by default, or if you click on the name, you come to this selection pad, which allows you to choose your presets based on a number of criteria. So the team at OBSO have built them into different categories: action, brass, bells, brass, etc., all the way through, for which you can multiply select and find out that camcords sits in the category of action and fantasy to allow you to set the tag selections, which is great. There is the ability to have your own favorites. I've got a handful of my favorites here. In order to choose a favorite, you merely have to click the little star to the left in here, and that will add it to your favorites, and it'll appear there. I will add a helpful suggestion. I'm wondering for OBSO, I would have thought it'd be quite handy if there was a feature to be able to search for the name of a preset by typing in a search bar. There was a couple that I was trying to look for, but I was forced to look through manually. But maybe that might be a suggestion the boys might consider. Shall we explore some more? I think there is so much to get through here, and there is some nuance in the detail. And sometimes you need to, as I've said in other reviews, let your fingers rest on the pad. Don't be in too much of a hurry and just let the sound really shine through. So let's pick a category in action, octano. It also has a helpful range here that's on the keys, C2 to G4, as you can see in your keypad down here. What's this sound like? So it sounds like a big octave piano. So the samples have been stretched right across the keyboard down to G2. Sounds like that big final piano note in the Beatles' Day in the Life, potentially. Adding a little filter. Big orchestra. Hardcore stabs, awesome. Nothing sounds more 80s than a series of stabs. So you can pepper them throughout your compositions for sure. In the bass section, deselecting everything to bass, we've got something called generation loss that I'm choosing at random now. All right, let's go down the keyboard because after all, we are in the bass section. Right, and I'll go back here. Let's have a play. Oh, there we go. Cool. Just moving that stereo width adjuster. The release is really short. You can release it and set it a little higher. A softer attack. Heavy distortion there. Sounds cool with that pulsing rhythm. Let's go back to toy basses. Plenty of bass lines in the 80s had that underlying bass line. You'll forgive my amateur rendition of a bass line with the left hand. But we have got maybe in the bell sections, let's choose a few here. Blu-rays. Now I'm going to hold down the key here to let that whole sample loop around. Nice, really nice. Matsushita. Another sound that sounds so reminiscent for those of us like me, who I'm a child of the 80s, so this really evokes that sound. gorgeous. Awesome. So much to choose from. Comedy section. What have we got there? Of course, something I can sense what this one is. Therovox. So it's almost a theremin, sounding like a voice, hence the Vox name. Nice little bit of legato transition between them. A little bit of 1970s, 80s sci-fi. Maybe Doctor Who fans for those in the UK and Australia. Did Doctor Who ever make it to the US? I'm not sure. Horny hits. Bum, bum, bum. Great, more stabs. Can't get too many of them. JVC Wah. Cool. Nice. Always some pads worthy of a look. I love these ones. Stargate. I personally love the pads because when they sort of really open up that voice and swell. For these ones, I love to really hold down the CC64, your pedal, and ride that pedal. Allows the samples to really open up and layer on top of each other, and allows you to make some smooth transitions on your pads. So I'm just holding that with the pedal as I go between each of the chords. Nice. I'm always intrigued by anything that says damaged strings. Is that an element of the Eurythmics in there? I don't know. That's what came to me. Sounds cool. A Forgan, I can only assume that's an organ. Now this is a perfect example of why I think sometimes you have to be really patient with some of the sounds. Holding down the chord here in the left hand, just doing a G. Here it really opens up. So with pads, take your time. They really feel nice. I'm wondering if I could open up this one here a little bit more. Yeah. There's a bit of a phaser in there. There's a sci-fi backing track just there. Love it. In fact, I didn't even realize there was a tag there for sci-fi. Since we just spoke of it, surely it's worthy of a listen anyway. An SLP choir. Oh yeah. Okay, I think I can feel a minor chord coming on here. very swirling organ like sci-fi, format wars. If you listen really closely, I can hear a tick, like it's almost like a rhythmic click, unintentional. It's probably one of the tumblers or something in the tape machine when they're recording it. Have a listen. Tick, tick, tick. Nice. So it's all that little bit of stuff that really makes all the world of difference. Shall we continue? I'm going to go have a look at some strings. I'm always a fan of strings in other worlds. Sad strings are always cool. Let's have a listen. I'm going to go back to the here. Let's have a look at the main interface. And if you're going to play with sad strings, they have to be a minor chord, don't they? This is a nice deep C minor. Things are getting a little happier now. Or hopeful. But let's go back to the C minor. Let's take it up an octave. Now it's starting to sound like a more... Okay, now we can go into a happy major mode, I reckon. Because when you take it up an octave, it just feels a bit more hopeful. So that's interesting. It's lovely. My instincts were, sad strings, low end of the spectrum, down the keyboard, some minor keys. Hey, but you can always play and change with anything on here, which is great. Let's return back. I want to have a try another one with the strings itself. Oxide Orchestra, if that's the right meaning of it. Here's the wow and flutter now. Back to our big G minors. To an A minor. I find too, a lot of the patches, not all, but many of the patches themselves, when you play a single key, will emanate a chord, if you like. So meaning if you play a chord, you're playing a chord on top of a chord on top of a chord, and it doesn't always work. So you have to be aware of that, I think, too. But let's see if we can find another example of that. How about if we have a look at, well, a different category altogether. The hits. Playback head. There's that pulse. Let's see what we can do with the mod here on this one. Does that come up? Yeah, very subtle. Now it seems to come back in, doesn't it? So obviously the playback head, that's that warbling of the tape as it goes across the head of the cassette deck. I imagine that's my interpretation of it, giving that sort of lovely wow and flutter. And I'm hoping if you're not a child of the 80s and you're a lot younger, hopefully that this gives you an insight to some of the beautiful warm sound out of the 80s that today's modern synthesizers with their beautiful crisp digital clarity kind of misses something. I don't know if you've ever played, if you are younger, if you've ever played with, say, your parents' LPs and you drop the needle on top of that vinyl and you hear that crackle and the warble as the platter goes round and round on the turntable. There's a beautiful natural warmth you can never really replace. And I think this is what OBSO is really appealing to, is giving you that opportunity to have that, that lovely, imperfections, I suppose, is one way of putting it. I think it's great. It's really nice. And of course, maybe a thriller to round out our walkthrough today. Hissy Heartbeats. I've got no idea. Okay, so that's me just holding down one note in F3. Hear the pulse? Wave pulsar, maybe? Ah, cool. I love this one. I remember hearing it when I was playing with it the other day. Again, one note, holding down a B note. Hear the crackle of the static? That's the needle, I reckon, on the LP. If it was recorded from an LP. It's gorgeous. What can we do with it? So this is a monophonic patch by the sounds because you can't play two notes at the same time. So it's monophonic. I love it. There's your underlying pulse bass line for your 80s beat track right there. Nice. Having a bit of fun here. Let's keep going. Sleepover. Now that's something too. That's a cool name. I like the name Sleepover. Again, I'm showing my age here. I'm dating myself. But in the 80s, we didn't have the internet, and all we do for our fun, we'd go over to a friend's place and sleep over. The girls would go and have their sleepover. I'd go and hang out with me mates. We'd play video games or watch Van Halen videos until the early hours of the morning because that's what we did in the 80s. This is cool. And it sounds like some of the movies we were watching back there with the really bad videotape. Back in the 80s, it was only VHS. It was a bit wobbly. And you only really had one videotape in those days. And even then, you had to you didn't have to be exactly rich, but you had to have some money around to afford a videotape player. That could be a romantic scene in a 1980s teen movie, for all I know. Who knows? What's Hush Quartet all about? I say, again, I'm going to hold down the key. This one's got a limited sample. It dies away. Nice. Cool. So there you have it. I reckon that is a pretty good run through. I don't think I've even really scratched the surface, but I hope I've been able to give you a sense of what OBSO is all about. Again, that beautiful warmth of the imperfections of obsolete technology with pads and sounds and VHS tapes and all sorts of good fun stuff. I reckon it's gorgeous. I've had a lot of fun playing with this one. So in order to show you what it sounds like in a compositional context, I've written a short piece, and let's head on over there now. I'll give you a listen, and then on the other side of that, how about we wrap up today's video and we'll give you my final thoughts. Before moving on to my final thoughts, some notes about the composition you heard. In that composition, you heard OBSO playing all the melody lines, then the effects and the pads. I did use an additional drum track and an 80s bass line to provide support. Everything else you heard was all OBSO. OBSO is, I believe, the first product for Circle Cynths, and they should be commended for a solid piece of work, and I'm sure they'll continue to create new offerings and expand current ones. Some ideas that came to mind for me that may enhance the appeal of OBSO. Having a layer engine, maybe with multiple sources, perhaps 2, maybe 4, that could be loaded in a single patch with some knobs to allow you to morph between sources. And maybe some further effects expansions like tape, ensemble or bit crush to really nail that 80s vibe. But suggestions aside, this is a fun and well-crafted offering that at the intro price of just $69.69 US is a gateway into nostalgia for all your retro productions. And that wraps up another samplers video from yours truly. Thanks for sticking around this far. As always, if you love OBSO and what the samplers does, smash the like button and subscribe so you can stay on top of the latest videos we release into the world of virtual instruments. Until I see you on the next one, this is Greg for the Samplist, over and out.